Step back in time to a world ruled by monstrous insects. Picture dragonflies the size of hawks, their wings cutting through the air as they hunt with deadly precision. Below, colossal millipedes slither through the dense forests, while massive scorpions lurk in the shadows, ready to strike. This was a world on the brink, where nature's giants reigned supreme, until it all came crashing down. Earth was once a drastically different place from what we know it to be today. This planet's surface was roamed by dragonflies, the size of hawks, with their wings cutting through the air as they hunted, and massive scorpions that constantly lurked in the shadows, ready to strike. This was a world on the brink, where nature's giants reigned supreme, until it all came crashing down. But how did these insects grow so large? What did this prehistoric world look like, and why did it vanish, taking these giants with it? In this video, we'll explore the science and mystery behind the age of giant insects, uncovering the secrets hidden in the fossilized remains, and answering the burning question of whether something like this ever happened again. Introduction to the Carboniferous period. The Carboniferous period happened between roughly 359.2 and 299 million years ago during the later part of the Paleozoic era. Its name, Carboniferous, comes from England, where huge coal deposits are found. These coal deposits aren't just in England, but also spread across northern Europe, Asia, and parts of North America. Around the world, people use the term Carboniferous to refer to this time, but in the United States, it's split into two parts, the Mississippian, the earlier part, and the Pennsylvanian, the later part. This split helps to distinguish the coal-rich Pennsylvanian layers from the mostly limestone layers of the Mississippian. The split is based on how the rocks and fossils in these layers differ across continents. Both the Mississippian and Pennsylvanian periods are further divided into stages, which are named after fossil groups that show the changes in life during those times. For the Mississippian, the stages are Tournaisian, Vesian, and Serpicovian. For the Pennsylvanian, the stages are Bashkirian, Moscovian, Casimovian, and Gelian. During this period, several key events shaped the world. Biologically, one of the biggest changes was the development of the amniote egg, a groundbreaking innovation of the Carboniferous period. This egg allowed certain four-legged animals to lay their eggs on land, without worrying about them drying out. This was crucial for the ancestors of birds, mammals, and reptiles, as it let them spread further onto land. Geologically, the late Carboniferous saw the collision of two giant landmasses, Laurasia, which included what is now Europe, Asia, and North America, and Gondwana, comprising Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, and India. This collision created the Appalachian Mountains in eastern North America and the Hercynian Mountains in what is now the United Kingdom. Another significant collision between Siberia and Eastern Europe led to the formation of the Ural Mountains in Russia. In terms of climate, the Carboniferous period was marked by a trend towards milder temperatures. This change is reflected in the decline of large ancient plants like lycopods and giant insects, and the rise of tree ferns, which thrived in the increasingly warmer and more stable climate. The Mississippian and Pennsylvanian periods have distinct differences in their rock formations. During the Mississippian period, much of North America was covered by seas. This marine environment meant that most of the rocks from this time were limestone. Limestone forms from tiny sea creatures called crinoids, algae covered in lime, or calcium carbonate left behind by waves. In contrast, the Pennsylvanian period saw a mix of land and sea. The movement of glaciers caused the seas to advance and retreat, creating a variety of environments. During this time, extensive forests filled with plants grew. When these forests were submerged by the sea, the plant material didn't decay. Over millions of years, the pressure and heat turned this plant material into coal. There were high levels of atmospheric oxygen, around 35%. At the start of the Carboniferous period, the climate was much more consistent, warm, and wet than what we experience now. There weren't clear seasons like we have today. Scientists know this by comparing fossil plants from that time with plants that grow in today's tropical and mild regions. The Carboniferous plants looked similar to those in these areas now and often didn't have growth rings. which hints at a steady climate throughout the year. This steady climate might have been due to the vast ocean that covered most of the Earth, with only a small part where Pangaea, the huge supercontinent that formed in the late Paleozoic and early Triassic, was starting to come together. Meganeura, the giant dragonfly. First found in France in 1880, Meganeura is a strong contender for the title of the largest flying insect ever. This ancient predator had enormous eyes, powerful mandibles with teeth, and sharp spines on its legs. While many people think it's a type of dragonfly, Meganeura is a different kind of insect called a griffinfly. Although griffinflies and dragonflies look similar, they have key differences. Griffinflies, like Meganeura, have distinct vein patterns in their wings, which is why the name Meganeura means large veins. Dragonflies, on the other hand, have more varied wing patterns. Another difference is that griffinflies have many appendages at the end of their abdomens, which they might have used for mating, laying eggs, or holding on to things. Lastly, due to their large size, griffinflies were probably slower than dragonflies. The first fossils of Meganeura were found in the French Stephanian coal measures of Commentary in 1880. By 1885, French paleontologist Charles Brongniart had described and named the insect Meganeura, noting the large network of veins on its wings. In 1937, researchers in Kansas identified a Meganeura species with a wingspan of over 2 feet. Another well-preserved specimen was found in Bolsover, Derbyshire, in 1979. There are several species of Meganeura, including Meganeura brongniarti, Meganeura monyi, and Meganeura visseri. These insects could grow to an impressive wingspan of nearly 65 to over 70 centimeters and a body length of almost 40 centimeters. It's believed that the maximum size of insects is influenced by the amount of oxygen available in their environment. Back during the Carboniferous period, the air had up to 35% oxygen, compared to today's 21%. Insects from that time, like the Meganeura, could grow incredibly large, with larvae reaching up to 1 foot in length. Insects back then could grow to such massive sizes for a few reasons. Insects like Meganeura use a system of tubes called tracheae to transport oxygen directly to their tissues. With more oxygen in the air, these tubes could deliver more oxygen to their bodies effortlessly, enabling them to grow larger. Scientists have found evidence supporting the idea that the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere played a key role in this gigantism. Recent studies on how modern insects and birds use energy for flying show that both the amount of oxygen and the density of the air limit how big these creatures can get. The debate starts when we look at the giant Meganeuridae insects from the Permian period, which had wings as large as the Meganeura, even though the oxygen levels back then were lower than in the Carboniferous period. This makes it hard to explain their size just by oxygen levels. Interestingly, even though Meganeuridae had the largest wings known, their bodies were lighter and smaller compared to some modern beetles. This means they weren't truly gigantic insects, just big compared to today's insects. Another theory scientists have is that these ancient insects grew so large because they had few predators and little competition. During the Carboniferous and Permian periods, the absence of flying vertebrate predators might have allowed insects to grow to their maximum size. This growth might have been pushed further by a sort of evolutionary competition, where herbivorous, plant-eating insects like Paleodictyoptera and Meganeura grew bigger in response to each other's evolving size and abilities. The evolutionary arms race refers to the competition between species that evolve together, with each trying to outdo the other by developing new features and defenses. This ongoing struggle is similar to a race where each side tries to get the upper hand. Another idea is that insects that originally lived in water and then moved onto land became larger to better cope with the high levels of oxygen they encountered. This increase in size helped them protect themselves and adapt to their new environment. Combining these explanations gives a fuller picture of why these insects grew so big. They were found in what is now Western Europe, specifically in places like Commentary in France and Bolsover in Derbyshire, England. They roamed the earth towards the end of the Carboniferous period. Meganeura was a carnivorous insect. It likely hunted and fed in a way similar to modern dragonflies, but because it was much larger, it could probably eat a wider variety of animals. Besides insects, Meganeura might have also preyed on small amphibians that were just starting to live on land. With its long legs covered in spines, Meganeura grabbed and held onto its prey. Its only known enemy was the giant amphibian Proterogyrinus. Meganeura was probably a flying hunter, like a hawk, with huge eyes that gave it nearly a full 360-degree view. It could see above and below, and its strong legs, equipped with spikes, were perfect for catching prey, traits similar to dragonfly hawks. Meganeura lived near water bodies like ponds and streams. It spent most of its time flying, only landing to mate, lay eggs, find shelter from storms, or occasionally eat its prey. Larvae lived in vertical tunnels in wet areas. During their larval stage, they were stealthy hunters, preying on small amphibians, insects, and spiders. As they mature into adults, their diet shifts to include other dragonflies, early reptiles like Petrolacosaurus, and mayflies. However, as time went on, the levels of oxygen in the atmosphere dropped after the Carboniferous period. This reduction meant that giant insects, which needed more oxygen to survive, couldn't get enough and either evolved into smaller forms or became extinct. The decline in oxygen and the rise of birds played significant roles in their disappearance. Insects need oxygen to survive, but instead of lungs, they have spiracles, small openings on their bodies that allow air to flow directly to their tissues. As oxygen levels fell, these spiracles weren't enough for the large insects. Additionally, as dinosaurs evolved into modern birds and learned to fly, they started hunting and competing with insects, limiting their growth and contributing to their decline. The earliest bird known to us, Archaeopteryx, appeared about 150 million years ago. Compared to the huge insects of its time, birds were faster and more nimble. Around 255 million years ago, a major extinction event known as the Permian-Triassic crisis drastically affected all forms of life. This event likely led to the extinction of many large insects and arthropods that lived both on land and in water during the Paleozoic era. Today, giant insects are a thing of the past. We still have some large insects, mostly in tropical regions. For example, beetles can grow over 18 centimeters long, butterflies can reach around 20 centimeters across, and stick insects can stretch up to 50 centimeters long. However, none of these insects is as large or has as impressive a wingspan as the giant insects from the Paleozoic era. The biggest dragonfly today is only about 20 centimeters long and has a slim body. For a long time, the huge size of these ancient insects overshadowed the smaller ones from the Carboniferous period. Recently, though, we've started to pay more attention to these smaller insects. This shift has helped us better understand the ecosystems of that era, offering a more balanced view of the diverse insect life that once existed. Meganeura has appeared in various media like Walking with Monsters, Prehistoric Park, and the video game Ark: Survival Evolved. Hundreds of millions of years ago, giant insects were common on Earth. They were powerful hunters in the Paleozoic skies and were the top predators until the end of the Permian period. At that point, the first gliding reptiles appeared, along with other changes in the environment, leading to the decline of these massive insects and the rise of birds like Archaeopteryx. Just imagining these prehistoric giants is impressive. It's amazing to think about an insect with a wingspan of over 2 feet. Meganeura was once known as the largest insect ever, but it was later surpassed by another giant insect, Meganeuropsis. During the Permian period, the world was full of strange and diverse creatures, making it a time of fascinating and bizarre life forms. Meganeura was huge, predatory, and extraordinary. Arthropleura, the giant millipede. The fossil found at Howick Beach came from a giant, ancient millipede called Arthropleura, which was first described back in 1854. These creatures left behind many fossils across Europe and North America, which were close to the equator during the Carboniferous period. This suggests they thrived in warm, tropical environments. The fossils of Arthropleura include both trace fossils, like tracks showing where they crawled, and body fossils, such as pieces of their legs and segments of their bodies. However, Finding well-preserved, nearly complete body fossils of these giant millipedes has been very rare. The Howick Beach fossil is only the third of its kind ever discovered, and it belongs to the largest Arthropleura found so far. It might even be a recently shed exoskeleton rather than a living creature, which means this millipede could have been growing even bigger. A 2.6-meter-long millipede wasn't quite enough, it seems. Besides its impressive size, this fossil is also fascinating because of its age. It's not just an example of gigantism in Arthropleura, but also the oldest, nearly complete body fossil of this species discovered so far, dating back to 326 million years ago. This makes it significantly older than previous body fossils of these giant millipedes. In the later part of the Carboniferous period, Earth's oxygen levels went up a lot, reaching about 30% to 35%. This high oxygen level is thought to have been a big factor in the growth of the very large arthropods from that time. Arthropods, like insects and spiders, have a special breathing system that uses a network of tubes to send oxygen directly to their tissues and cells. With more oxygen available, these creatures could grow to larger sizes than was possible when oxygen levels were lower. However, when the giant Arthropleura lived about 326 million years ago, oxygen levels were only around 23%, which is not much higher than today's 21%. It's possible that the key to its huge size was not the oxygen in the air, but rather its place in the environment and the timing of evolution. At that time, there were no large land-dwelling animals to compete with or prey on the Arthropleura. The arrival of large land animals was just starting, so the Arthropleura had a unique advantage with fewer threats and rivals. During this time, amphibians were already around, spending part of their lives out of the water. However, tetrapods, four-limbed animals, hadn't yet made a lasting home on land. The giant Arthropleura roamed in an environment that lacked reptiles, birds, and mammals, animals that would later take up the roles of medium and large land dwellers. Arthropleura and other arthropods managed to conquer land long before vertebrates did. They had the whole place to themselves, which meant they could grow very large without any competitors to challenge them. This early dominance gave them a chance to experiment with becoming giant creatures. It's also possible that spikes in oxygen levels later on helped some arthropods grow even bigger, especially during the late Carboniferous and early Permian periods when oxygen levels were at their highest, about 35% of the atmosphere. However, for Arthropleura, the key to their enormous size wasn't higher oxygen levels. Instead, the availability of food was likely a major factor. To sustain their large bodies, they would have needed to eat a lot of high-nutrient food. Although we don't have fossils of their mouthparts to confirm their diet, it's probably that they mostly ate plants, much like modern millipedes. The lack of competition from plant-eating vertebrates would have been ideal for them. Pulmonoscorpius, the giant scorpion. Pulmonoscorpius was a giant scorpion that lived a long time ago during the Mississippian period, which is part of the early Carboniferous era. It was discovered in Scotland, where the fossils of this creature were found at the East Kirkton Quarry. The single species known from this genus is called Pulmonoscorpius kirktonensis. One of the biggest individuals reached over 70 centimeters, about 28 inches, in length, making it one of the largest scorpions ever known. Other notable insects included giant cockroaches up to 10 centimeters long and mayflies with wingspans of 45 centimeters. Unlike modern scorpions, Pulmonoscorpius had some features that are not seen in today's species. For instance, it had large, side-facing eyes and did not have adaptations for digging burrows. It was probably an active predator during the day and lived on land, as indicated by its book lungs, which are specialized breathing organs. The fossils were found in rock layers that are approximately 336 to 326 million years old. The name Pulmonoscorpius combines the Latin word pulmonis, meaning lung, with the Greek word scorpios, meaning scorpion. The species name kirktonensis reflects the place where the fossils were discovered, East Kirkton Quarry. Pulmonoscorpius, a type of ancient scorpion, was first described in 1994. Scientists based their description on 16 complete specimens and more than 300 smaller pieces found at East Kirkton. In each specimen, only the outer layer of a tough, transparent covering called the hyaline cuticle has survived. This layer is very thin, ranging from just 15 to 18 micrometers in the largest specimens. The cuticle can be found in the East Kirkton limestone and the Little Cliff shale, but not in the Upper Geikie tuff. Although the cuticle can appear in different types of shale and limestone, it is easiest to prepare from finely layered limestone. This limestone can be dissolved with a mild acid, leaving the organic cuticle intact. Most of the fossils are flattened, so recreating their original three-dimensional shape is mostly guesswork. We don't know exactly what Pulmonoscorpius ate, but it likely fed on smaller arthropods and possibly small early vertebrates. Most of the complete Pulmonoscorpius specimens measured between 13 and 280 millimeters long. One particularly large but incomplete specimen is estimated to have reached 70 centimeters in length when it was alive. The only preserved parts of this specimen were the outer layers of its cuticle. Pulmonoscorpius had 2 pairs of eyes on its prosoma, which is the combined head and leg segment. This included a pair of median eyes located near the center of the prosoma and a pair of lateral eyes on its sides. Each lateral eye had between 40 and 60 smaller eyes called ocelli. Unlike modern scorpions, which have reduced lateral eyes, Pulmonoscorpius's eyes were large, similar to early scorpions and many other arthropods. The prosoma was covered by a large plate called a carapace. Behind the prosoma was the mesosoma, which resembles the broad abdominal section of modern scorpions and is divided into 7 segments, each covered by a small, broad plate called a tergite. In young Pulmonoscorpius, the carapace and tergites were smooth, but as they grew, the surface became bumpy. The metasoma, or tail, had 5 segments, plus a bulbous end segment called the telson, which had a stinger. The 5th segment was not longer than the 4th segment. In adults, the metasomal segments were boxy and had paired ridges called carinae. The most prominent ridges were on the top and upper sides, while smaller ridges were found on the lower sides and underside. There might have been differences between males and females, with some females having wider metasomal segments. In Pulmonoscorpius kirktonensis, the stinger, vesicle, had 2 strong ridges on its underside. A unique juvenile specimen seemed to lack these ridges and could be a different species, possibly Pulmonoscorpius spa. The coxae, the shortest segment of each leg closest to the body, came together on the underside of the prosoma. The sternum, the plate between the bases of the 3rd and 4th legs, was elongated and had a Y-shaped groove at the rear. On the underside of the mesosoma, there was a bilobed and elongated genital operculum covering the gonopore, followed by pectines, which are comb-like sensory structures with 150 to 160 narrow teeth. There were also ventral plates, 3 in juveniles and 4 in adults. The first ventral plate in juveniles had a unique median lobe. Like modern scorpions, Pulmonoscorpius had 4 pairs of book lungs located at the corresponding ventral plates. Pulmonoscorpius had 4 pairs of walking legs, larger pincer-like pedipalps, and smaller pincer-like mouthparts called chelicerae. A distinct feature was the long spur on each apophysis, an extension of the coxa. The chelicerae and legs were similar to those of current scorpions, but the coxa and femur, the 1st and 3rd segments of the 3rd and 4th legs, were less elongated, while the tibia, the 5th segment of these legs, was about as long as the femur. In the pedipalps, the femur and patella, the 4th segment, had carinae. The setae, or hairs, were sparse but clustered, especially on the large fixed finger of the pedipalps. One juvenile specimen had 30% more setae on its fixed finger compared to other Pulmonoscorpius kirktonensis specimens and might belong to a different species, Pulmonoscorpius spb. Besides the main species, 2 other specimens might be distinct. One had juvenile pedipalps with 30% more sedal follicles than P. kirktonensis, and the other lacked the tuberculated ventral carinae on the vesicle of its telson. The Carboniferous period, the Coal Age. During the Carboniferous period, these giant millipedes could have enjoyed a feast of nutrient-rich seeds and other plant materials scattered throughout the coal swamps and open woodlands. This herbivorous creature feeds primarily on decomposing plant material, contributing to the nutrient cycle in the dense Carboniferous forests. Their large size might have also made them effective predators. It's possible they added some animal prey to their diet, including smaller insects and perhaps even small, early amphibians, our distant ancestors. However, the conditions that allowed these massive millipedes to flourish were not going to last. Around 290 million years ago, during the early Permian period, their fossil traces and remains suddenly disappeared. This extinction was likely due to two major factors. First, during this time, the supercontinent Pangaea formed, creating drier conditions near the equator. The giant millipedes, which seem to have lived only in these specific regions, might not have been able to cope with the increasing dryness. Second, they began facing intense competition from new vertebrates, particularly the early reptiles that emerged in the Permian. These reptiles quickly became more prominent on land, evolving to be larger, more diverse, and better suited to the changing environment. The combination of a harsher climate and the rise of new, competitive reptiles might have been too much for the giant millipedes. This period marked the end of their reign, and there would never be another opportunity for millipedes to grow to such colossal sizes again. During the Carboniferous period, the continents were often covered by shallow, warm seas. In these seas, filter-feeding animals like bryozoans, especially phenestelids, were very common, while the sea floor was dominated by brachiopods. Trilobites, which had been plentiful in earlier periods, were becoming rare, whereas foraminifers were thriving. The heavily armored fish from the Devonian period went extinct and were replaced by fish that looked more like those we see today. Near the end of the Mississippian period, the uplift of land led to more erosion, increasing the number of floodplains and deltas. These deltaic areas supported fewer corals, crinoids, blastoids, and bryozoans, which had been more common earlier. Freshwater clams made their first appearance, and there was a rise in the diversity of gastropods, bony fish, and sharks. As the continents began to come together to form the supercontinent Pangaea, the reduction in coastlines impacted the variety of marine life in these shallow waters. At the southern pole, two large ice sheets formed, trapping significant amounts of water as ice. This caused sea levels to drop, which in turn increased the amount of land habitat. The Pennsylvanian period saw sea levels rise and fall due to glaciation cycles, which left visible patterns of alternating shale and coal layers in the rocks. The uplift of continents led to a shift towards more land-based environments during the Pennsylvanian, though swamp forests remained widespread. In these swamps, seedless plants like lycopsids thrived and were the main source of the carbon that later turned into coal. However, these lycopods faced a major extinction event due to a drying trend likely caused by increased glaciation. As the Carboniferous progressed, ferns and sphenopsids became more prominent, and the earliest conifer relatives appeared. The first land snails showed up, and winged insects like dragonflies and mayflies flourished. These insects, along with millipedes, scorpions, and spiders, became key players in the ecosystem. With the increasing importance of dry land habitats, the amniotic egg became crucial for reproduction. The earliest amniote fossil, Hylonomus, was a lizard-like creature with strong jaws and slender limbs. During the Carboniferous, tetrapods became more diverse. New predators with long snouts and short limbs, like temnospondyls, emerged. Early tetrapods and amniotes with deep skulls and more agile bodies, such as anthracosaurs, appeared, soon followed by diapsids, which split into marine reptiles, lizards, snakes, and archosaurs, which included crocodiles, dinosaurs, and birds. Synapsids also appeared, with anapsids likely emerging around the same time, although the oldest fossils of anapsids are from the lower Permian. Boundaries between geological periods are often marked by the appearance or disappearance of certain fossils. The transition from the Devonian to the Carboniferous is marked by the conodont Siphonodella sulcata or Siphondella duplicata. The end of the Carboniferous and the start of the Permian is noted by the appearance of the fusillinid Foraminifera sphero-schwagerina fusiformis in Europe and pseudo-schwagerina baedae in North America. Fusillinids, large protists that resemble rice grains, were abundant and formed significant deposits known as rice rock. The Mississippian is distinguished from the Pennsylvanian by the appearance of specific fossils like Declinognathodus noduliferus, the ammonoid genus Homoceras, and foraminifers Millerella pressa and Millerella marblensis. These markers apply mainly to marine deposits. The shift from marine to more land-based environments can also be seen in the plants of the Mississippian compared to the Pennsylvanian. Mississippian rock layers are characterized by shallow water limestones, some made up of crinoid remains, lime mudstones from green algae, and oolithic limestones from high wave energy. Less common are sandstones and siltstones. In the late Carboniferous, thick coal beds formed from the remains of seedless vascular plants in tropical swamp forests. Peat from these plants was later covered by marine sediments and transformed into coal under heat and pressure. Coal balls, which are preserved plant debris, are sometimes found within these coal layers. The Pennsylvanian period is marked by multiple sea level changes, visible in the rock layers as sequences from sandstone to coal and back. Index fossils, which are plants and animals that define specific periods and are found widely, help date these rocks. The Mississippian is marked by marine fossils, while the Pennsylvanian is noted for fusillinid foraminifers and pollen and spores from coal forests. The boundary between the Mississippian and Pennsylvanian is marked by the appearance of the fusillinid Pseudostaphella antiqua, with early Pennsylvanian rocks containing ammonoid genera like Gastrioceras, Diboloceras, and Paralagoceras. Promotion of Planet Wild. Most of us have a special memory of trees, like climbing them as kids or enjoying their shade on a sunny day. But we've taken them for granted and have cleared nearly half of the world's forests. Fortunately, forests have an amazing ability to recover. All around the world, new forests are starting to grow. Given a little chance, trees can miraculously restore themselves and bring life back to the land, almost as if from nowhere. This incredible resilience comes from their need to survive and bounce back from tough conditions. But sadly, forests struggle to recover from human actions. We are incredibly efficient at destroying trees. In just 25 years, we've lost over 1 million square kilometers of forest and are still cutting down over 10 billion trees each year. Many of our ancient forests, which were home to a rich variety of life, are now gone. We've also lost the natural predators that help control plant-eating animals, which are crucial for the forest's recovery. We need trees more than ever. Forests absorb carbon dioxide from the air and store it in their trunks, roots, and soil. They take in nearly 15 billion tons of carbon dioxide each year. When we clear and burn forests, we release huge amounts of carbon back into the atmosphere, speeding up climate change. To combat this, we need to focus on growing forests again. The good news is that the solution is straightforward. We just need to give trees the chance to use their natural ability to recover. We can start by protecting the remaining ancient forests, which still have their full range of species and are free from human damage. These forests can then spread their plants and animals to new areas. Even though many forests have been impacted by humans, they can still be healthy and wild. We can maintain them by managing them well, taking wood and other products responsibly, and valuing them as they are. By doing so, we can help them stay strong. As the global population grows, we'll need more wood, which can be a good thing if done right. Wood is a renewable resource, and getting it from well-managed sources benefits both forests and the planet. Since natural forests alone can't provide all the wood we need, we should also grow trees on cleared land, ensuring these new plantations don't replace existing forests. These new tree farms should also allow wildlife to move through and benefit local communities. Globally, there are about 2 billion hectares of degraded land that could be restored, which is twice the size of Europe. By improving farming methods and adopting healthier diets, we can free up land for both tree plantations and forest restoration. Many countries are already planting millions of trees by hand, and some projects use advanced technology, like shooting seeds to hard-to-reach areas, to speed up the process. If we do all this, imagine the future. We'll have protected our ancient forests, met our wood needs sustainably, stabilized our climate, and enjoyed more natural forests than ever before. Most importantly, we'll create a future where our cities are green with trees, providing shade and cleaner air. This will make us healthier and happier, as just seeing trees or walking past them can refresh our minds and bodies. That's the magic of trees, so go ahead and breathe in their beauty. What are your thoughts on the nature of the Earth in the age of giant insects? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section.